right, so this is the AM show. Let's get into our main conversation for today, and it has to do with school principals worried about the spate of indiscipline in schools in Ghana, and they believe it has everything to do with corporal punishment being outlawed in schools. They're essentially saying sparing the rod is spoiling the children, and so they concluded after their 59th annual conference in the Upper East region that there needs to be another look at their current policy. They complain about the plethora of acts of indiscipline students have been engaged in recent years. So this morning, we ask if Charles has a point and whether it's about time the policy on corporal punishment is reviewed. We'd love to hear from you, our viewers, as well, whether you're a student or a parent. Joining us in the studio is Peter Anti, Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies. We also have on Zoom Sefam Lord Mensah, who's a teacher and a parent, and then Kwame Usu Eduomi, he's the secretary at CHAS. We also will be joined later on by Cassandra Chum Ampo, who's a PRO of the Ghana Education Service. But I'd want us to start with Kwame Usu Eduomi, who's the secretary of CHAS. Good morning to you, Mr. Eduomi.
Hello.
Yes, good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning.
And thank you for joining us in this conversation. So,
thank you very much.
Yeah, Charles has been making the case about the fact that sparing the rod is spoiling the child. Please elaborate a bit more on that for us.
Yes, we are saying that not necessarily spoiling the rod and spoiling the child. The fact is that we believe that what we have done is about picking something from line, hook, and sinker, and then bringing it to our domain. That's why we have called for a dialogue. Okay. We are not against the use of the abolition of corporal punishment, but we should find a way. We are in a different culture altogether, and so we should find a way of coming out with a workable, if you like, solution to the challenge of indiscipline in the school. We are not the people who did it are managers, and we must follow it. But the fact is that we also have to ensure that something in between the corporal punishment and the non-use of corporal punishment, we come to a midway and then see that we are able to forge ahead. We are only at a loss in relation to the number of challenges that we have in our school as a result of the abolition of the book. That's why we came out with that.
And you feel that several acts of indiscipline that have been reported in recent times or happening in the schools has to do with this complete abolition of the corporal punishment?
Yes, it may not necessarily be so alone, but sometimes the attack on the classroom teacher. You understand? The attack on the... you see, sometimes the students themselves might even not know that corporal punishment has been abolished. At the moment they hear of innocence, they go attacking... we are not talking about junior high schools alone, but a holistic approach, maybe pre-tertiary, whatever. Because you in the community, a teacher falters a bit. And you see, sometimes the whole community... going in fury to, if you like, go to the teacher and then give him a befitting punishment that is beyond that of the student. We need to talk about it. And I like your program this morning that you are also coming into the system and you are talking about. So it's about all of us to think about an African way. It's biblical. In fact, the Reverend Father who prayed at our Congress, actually, I have forgotten but it's biblical that you
spare the rod,
you spare the rod, and then you spoil the child. And so, definitely, there should be. We are not talking about. We are not against it at all. Because I didn't receive any cane when I was a kid, but I've grown up at least to be a head as a modest achievement, of course. But the fact still remains that we need to. There are some students who are so recalcitrant that we need to do something, and that something is what we must all find. In fact, Charles didn't have a clue as to what we are supposed to do, but we are saying that there should be a common ground that does not actually bring in that of the Western life, line hook and sinker, where in the West somebody can tell the father, don't be silly, and the father doesn't have, the father is helpless. You understand? But here we are Africans. We have a way of so this. We can bring in the traditional people, the academia, everybody, like the media, as well. So at least we can come to a common ground as to how we can instill discipline in our students.
All right, Mr. Oswebiomi, I want to bring in my colleague, Enima Enimado, who has a question for you. Enima.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay. So, how would you be able to regulate the amount of corporal punishment being meted out? So, I mean, growing up, we remember being in school when teachers would soak cane in water, you know, or, you know, make you kneel down and they would beat you and they would leave you with scars and, you know, all of those things. And for me, I mean, and in my experience, it only succeeded in making us more scheming and devious about the bad things we wanted to do. So we avoided punishment as opposed to changing behavior. So first thing, if we're breaking it down, how are you going to regulate this punishment so that it doesn't become abuse? And secondly, is the focus compliance or is the focus reformation?
We are talking about, we are not talking about corporal punishment as, you know, bringing it back into our fold. But the fact still remains that, as we are saying, regulation of the, I will not support any teacher who uses the cane in my school to as a form of any punishment. Or it's not the case. But we are saying that if the sin is allowed, before the abolition, there was the headmaster could do something at least 6 lashes supervised by the headmaster. You understand?
So is the headmaster not going to spend the whole day supervising lashing then?
Yes, before the abolition in 2017, the rule was that the headmaster could supervise at least some, especially when the kid has gone so much into discipline, and so that was exactly the case. But now it is totally abolished. So anybody who does that, be it the headmaster or whoever, is under it's an aberration to the law of the land. So what we are trying to say is that let's now have a common. I'm not talking about maybe how is it going to be regulated or whatever, but the fact is that we need to dialogue. In fact, Alaji wasn't calling for the reinstating of the my president I'm talking about wasn't calling for the reinstatement of corporal punishment, but he was talking about dialoguing to get to a common, because the cultures in which we brought this culture are advanced. When they mention anything in science, for instance, it is there. The kids see, they feel, they touch. Here, most of the things that we do may be in abstract. You need some pushers to be able to work together those things installed, and then you go to some of the institutions outside, and you have a lot of workers there who are doing their editorial work and all that. Here, nothing. And so we need to get rules and regulations that will make a child feel that what he did wasn't right. And so long as there are prisons and all that to punish even people in the advanced countries, so is that there should be something that should regulate our life in the school. If these things are taken out entirely, then the head of the school is helpless. And so you look on while others do whatever they do. And I think that is what we are talking about. We are not talking about the fact that the abolition should be brought back. No. We are talking about a central point where all of us would agree. And I think what we have started at Joy FM is a good way of dialoguing with others. And I hear a lot of other people who speak after mine. And then we will take it from there, whatever we are, because definitely we'll be in Accra and then dialogue even again with our management members on even the community. And those are all things that we expect to happen. And I think that is the only way we can move forward and then forge ahead, because what is happening in the schools is still, I don't know whether it's because of the social media networking that has brought about some of these things. Maybe it was happening in the olden days, but we're not hearing because we didn't have WhatsApp, we didn't have whatever. For now, I think it's so pronounced that we are becoming afraid. My dear, when we are vacating, you need a police presence to be in the schools. I don't know whether you have. When we are vacating, when the kids finish their school, their papers, and they are going out, you need the police presence to be able to make the school security free. Otherwise, they will vandalize most of the items that you have, including cars, whatever is inside.
So thank you very much, Mr. Usu-Diomi, but I want you to stay on because we are going to have the conversation with others, and when we'll bring you on. We have Sefam Lord Mensah, who is a teacher and a parent as well. We'll be taking her views on the conversation. But let's come into the studio and speak with Peter Anti. Now, Peter, you've heard what the Charles is saying. Essentially, they're not saying that let's bring back corporal punishment, but they're looking at finding some middle ground. But what do you make of the policy of, outlawing corporal punishment in the first place?
Thank you very much. One, I understand the challenges the teachers are going through. It was a good policy that in our educational system and in most advanced countries, corporal punishments are not entertained because it has a lot of emotional, psychological impact on the students. So when we decided to gradually eliminate that from the system, it was a good thing that we agreed or we decided to do. But then society changes, and because society changes, we need to also be able to find ways and means to meet the changing dynamics in our society. And one of the ways we could have done this would have been to engage in a lot of dialogue to allow the teachers and the school authorities understand how best they will be able to implement the new positive punitive measures that were going to be introduced. Because if you look at all countries that have abolished corporal punishment, they have systems in place. They have various professionals in the various educational institutions. They did a lot of education. They did a lot of sensitization, so that by the time that the policy was rolled out, there was a lot of understanding. There was a lot of capacity building, and the policy was able to be implemented fruitfully. But in our system, we were not able to do that. We decided to take the canes away from the teachers, which seemed to be their source of power, and then the teachers felt helpless. But we did not, at the same time, empower the teachers to be equipped with the skills to be able to implement the positive punitive measures that we wanted them to do. We left our schools just like that, without having proper psychologists and guidance and counseling coordinators well trained to be able to do what they are supposed to do, profile students, identify them, and as Madam said, be able to help them reform from whatever challenges that they seem to have been going through. And that is why we have an escalation of indiscipline in our schools, because now you took the power away from the teacher. What the teachers saw was their source of power, what the students seem to have been feared, but you did not build the capacity of the teacher to implement your new policy. And that is what is really happening now.
Let me bring in Sefam, who's a teacher and a parent as well. So, Sefam, you've been listening to the conversation for a while now. What's your position about the abolition of corporal punishment?
I was able to listen to the tape from Charles, the meeting. And just like our president indicated, mind you, I am not speaking for Ghana Education Service. I am a parent, yes, I'm an educationist. So my views are not to be a voice for Ghana Education Service.
No. In fact, for this question, I want you to speak as a teacher.
Good. So when I listen, what actually is coming up with corporal punishment has been abolished. However, the space has been left out gray. There's nothing to support teachers in the schools when issues like this happened. Trace back and ask yourself, this corporal punishment, and it has been there for ages. Even in the Bible, Jesus was beaten, right? Lots of people were punished, were caned. And they realized that, and when you go online, you notice that lots of research has come out to indicate the negative effect of corporal punishment. So out of 195 or 193 countries, we are getting about 132, 130-something countries abolishing corporal punishment in their schools. Even in the developed countries, some of them are still struggling with these issues, that they want to take it out entirely because they've noticed that the negative effects of corporal punishment in our schools are not helping. Punishment is an aspect of discipline, but it is not all about punishment. We discipline to make sure that the person stays in line. And mind you, discipline is an internal something, but punishment is something that someone would instruct or give to you for you to act in a certain manner. And it would provide or give you the immediate response, yet it does not. So if you are in our schools and our children, our students are misbehaving, some of them pulling scissors, stabbing teachers, slapping teachers, misbehaving in class, not coming to school early, truancy, substance abuse and other things, we need to go and find out what is really happening. Is it coming from the house? So if corporal punishment, which is what we know in this part of the world, that is the only way we can put students in order. If it has been taken out, what other means are we using? If you have to resort to counseling, how are the students being counseled? What kind of counselor are the schools being given? Are they trained enough to go down to the background, deep to the background of the student? If a child is suffering from an adverse childhood experiences, that is traumatic behaviors where children experience from infancy to late teens, is what the child is exhibiting in school. And that child comes to school. And the only way that child can fit into the school is also you punishing that child through severe things. That child will leave school. But I don't think any teacher is interested in punishing a child for that child to hate school.
Right.
No way.
Sefam, are you saying that when the corporal punishment was outlawed in the schools, we were not giving any options at all or any other way out?
For me, it was more like a gray area. So what happens is, counsel the child, talk to the child. What kind of facility or resources have you provided the teacher to rely on to do this work excellently, effectively, and efficiently? If the counselor is not resourced enough, that counselor can do it to a limit. Probably some public schools are talking of over 3,000 students to one counselor in the school. So what I know some schools are doing is that some schools have welcomed some teachers on board for them to help the counselor to be able to do this work. So if a counselor is dealing with 3,000 students, and in each class you are having issues with inappropriate behavior, maybe 7 or 10 students out of it are having issues, do you think that counselor will be able to handle those issues? No. So if corporal punishment has been taken out of the school, what are the measures or the mechanism that will be put in place? I am very happy the other gentleman, is it Peter? Indicated that, good, teachers are supposed to be resourced, trained. Can we now get back to schools in our curriculum, teacher training schools, and inculcate into the curriculum what corporal punishment is all about, the effects, the negative tendencies of it, what are adverse childhood experiences, what effect or impact is it having on that child? How would it impact on the child's educational journey negatively or positively? How do you as a teacher meet that child? Because mind you, in the school, we are not just interested in the cognitive training of the child. We are interested in the affective, which is the values of that child, the activity based, then the cognitive aspect. So if that parent is not, teacher is not resourced enough and the teacher is left out, counsel. What kind of counseling are we talking about? Is a counselor resource to do that work effectively? So I think Charles is not saying that bring back corporal punishment, but he mentioned that I'm sure is it Mr. Usu doesn't want to use the word, that he's not saying that. He says a safe rule. He used the word that I'm trying to paraphrase. They want a straight jacket. What are you supposed to do as a school? No corporal punishment. Counseling. How do you go through the counseling? If the issues are severe, do we take the child out? If you are not taking the child out, how do you solve those issues for that child to come back to school? Because we don't want to leave any child out. Every child, we want to save every child. No child is supposed to be left behind. So that is the basis of discipline. And again, I'm stressing that discipline is an internal something. And he also mentioned that he was never punished. I wasn't also caned, but here I am. So those who are internally motivated will stay in school. But those who have got challenges, maybe they have a learning challenge or disability, and you punish them, you cane them, what are you doing? It would make them stay away from school the more. After all, when I come, I'm going to receive punishment. And some also grow tough skin. You can realize that some students will stay there. If it's 12 canes or whatever you give them, they stay there and they get it, and they get fines from their colleagues. So what are you doing? But what we are trying to say that, what is the way forward? If other countries have been able to abolish it in their system, what are they putting in place? Sweden, I'm sure, was the first to take this thing out of their school. Are you trying to say that they don't have issues? They are struggling. They are battling with issues in their schools. They are battling with social media. They are battling with internet. They are battling with drug abuse. They are battling with early sex. There are all kinds of things. But how are they handling it? How can we learn from these things and inculcate it in our system? This should be what we should be talking about, and how the conversation should lead us to solve these issues.
So, Sefam, we all tend to agree that corporal punishment is not a good thing, and it's good that we got rid of it.
That's
but
right.
Would you rather we brought back corporal punishment, considering we didn't put in place any other mechanism to address the issue of indiscipline?
Can we say that we want to get rid of internet usage because we are having issues? We are getting around it. So it has been abolished. The conversation has started. So what is the way forward? So as we dialogue, gradually we would put things in place. So, but we can't say that bring it back and let's find solutions to it. But It shouldn't be a jacket fix.
Yeah.
These issues that we are talking about are child per child related. So we can't treat, even with one child, you can't use the same means of discipline or punishment towards one child, because circumstances and issues and events and experiences will make the child behave in a certain way. So if you're a teacher and you are focused and you are proactive in nature, you realize that this method I use for this child can't be used for this other one, or can't be used again. I need to use another way. So no, in as much as we are still talking and we don't have things in place, we should bring back corporal punishment. No, please, we can't do that. We are having issues with the internet. Look at Ghana here. Our internet space is porous. When you log on, anything you want, you get it. It is not even age appropriate. Are we saying that because of that we are banning internet in our system? We are still using it, but we are going around it in a manner that would benefit all of us.
Okay, Sefa, I'm just wondering, as a parent myself, how much of a cooperation would it take between parents and teachers to get, the children to be more well-behaved? Because you're talking about even the fact that every child will have to be disciplined differently. So if we're talking about things like, positive reinforcement, and those kinds of methods that are being used in the Western world, then how much of that will also depend on the cooperation between the teachers and the parents, if we're taking away caning completely? Okay, so Sefam is frozen. She was talking about internet issues, and then suddenly we're having internet issues. Sefam, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Please tell your fans not to call you.
I was wondering what was going on.
Okay, so I was asking about the cooperation between parents and teachers. Right. If we're taking away corporal punishment, or as it has been taken away, and what we're actually trying to do is put in measures that will reinforce positive behavior, and take away negative behavior, how much of that is dependent on the teachers and the parents working together to create solutions for each child? Because like you said, every child is different. So the punishments and things that children respond to are different depending on their personalities. How much of it is dependent on the teacher's ability to work with the parents?
It's so much like a 50-50 collaboration. We can even say 30-70, because you notice that children spend lots of time even at school more than at home. And now Ghana, where we are now, you get parents, even though they are supposed to be spending lots of time weekend, you are still working when it comes to a weekend. You have your teaching job and you have your side hustle. So weekend, you are not at home. And the children tend to spend lots of time at school, and then when they come home, they are also not. So it is more like not just paying the fees for the child and staying back and thinking that the teacher is supposed to perform the magic on your child. You are supposed to play your part as a parent, and the teacher would also play his or her part. You collaborate. That is why in some of the private schools, they have parent-teacher conferencing, where the teacher and the parent sit one-on-one. They have a thorough discussion on the performance and the progress of the child, not just academic-wise, but the social aspect of the child. And sometimes children trust teachers so much that they are able to open up to the... And so how another thing is, the teacher doesn't want to talk about it for the fear that the parent will be embarrassed. He or she would have a way of going about it, because the students coming to school will confide in the teacher. So if you have that kind of trust and open relationship with your school, the teacher and the parent, it will go a long way to improve that learning experience of that child. It is not just the teacher's work, neither is it the parents' work. And this issue too, where we parents, most of us dump the students on the teachers, thinking that by magic something will be done. For me, it's a no-go area. Both of us are supposed to be working on that child to make that child the person or who he or she wants to be. Right. You know what? The thing is inside. We the teachers are serving as a guide. So we are only to guide, to prune, to nurture, so that whatever is deposited in that child comes out naturally. So that is why discipline, it says is coming from a Latin word that says what? Disciples. So disciples are what? Students, and students is supposed to learn. So if you're a disciple, you are supposed to instruct. So we guide that student. So that is what we are supposed to do. And it shouldn't be the work of just the teachers. Parents are supposed to be involved, not just paying of the fees, but making sure that the things you are supposed to. It says charity begins at home. So if you don't instill those values in your child and you just push the child to school, meaning that you are sending that child to be a nuisance in the school. However, that child has got so much. I don't believe in a child who is a useless child or a beyond redemption. Every child has got a story. It is just a matter of time and how we can go about it that we can save that child.
Okay, Safa, I'm going to hand you over to Israel in a second, but I want to talk to you about mindsets and the Ghanaian mindset and the way that we think and the way that we raise our children. So for a very long time, we've been a lot more concerned with what our children look like or what they present as opposed to who they are or who they are becoming on the inside. And I mean, raising and nurturing a child from the inside is hard work. It's a painful, tedious process of constantly trying to prune and constantly trying to adjust behavior and, deal with all those things. Do we have the capacity as a society to have taken away this easier form of punishment? Because I believe, that the corporal punishment, all it does is it improves compliance temporarily. But do we have the capacity to actually be the people who are changing the next generation when we ourselves are struggling with certain mindsets that sometimes when the children challenge, we have no answers to? Remember, for a long time when we were growing up, when we asked our parents, why this, why that, the answer a lot of times was because I say so or because I've told you so. But the children of today are not like that. There's so much more information. There's the internet. I don't know, God seems to be creating them a little bit differently these days, so do we have the capacity to do all of these things that we want to do, or are we just, hoping that we can just get them to comply through the school years and then we can send them off?
So capacity is the ability and the willingness to reform and to empower ourselves. Like you said, when we were young, you dare not ask certain questions. When we were young, you dare not even frown when you are asked to do something. But of the children of these days, when you ask them to do something and they frown, you need to explain why you want them to do those things. So it is more about we parents being ready to reform and to empower ourselves, reading more. even before you get pregnant, you need to read more about the pregnancy, the stages that you go through, the decisions and the decisions you make and how it will affect that unborn child in your tummy, the stages, and even when the child is born. So making all these decisions is about what? Empowerment. So if you read more and you are willing to learn, I am sure that the narrative continues to change and we would reform. So yes, we don't have the capacity, but we have the ability to reform and empower ourselves through education. And then education is not just about formal education. What we are doing, we are learning. We also learn informally. We also learn by looking at our children and how they develop. I have 3, and they are all different in so many ways. And their differences even make me as a mother to grow because I am beginning to learn. And sometimes they challenge what I have known over the years, thinking that that is the right way.
Yeah.
And they come to tell you that that is not the right way.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Sefam. Fortunately, we have the Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Education Service, Cassandra Chum Ampo, for joining us now. Good morning to you, Cassandra. Good morning, Cassandra.
Good morning, Israel.
All right, so we have been having this conversation for a while, and what Chas is saying now is, can we have a conversation, a dialogue on finding some middle ground as far as the abolition of corporal punishment is concerned? They are not saying that let's bring back corporal punishment, but they're saying that we should also be looking at how we can tackle indiscipline or the growing indiscipline in our schools. What's the GS's position on this?
Well, thank you very much, and Israel, and good morning to your viewers. Yes, for us, any discussion around corporal punishment is welcomed. And we are looking at making the school environment safe so that the students, we believe that education is key. Students that come to us for us to provide quality education, two of them must be happy and stay in school. The environment must also be conducive for teachers as well. So it's all about projecting the safe school environment. And so any discussion around it is welcome.
Okay.
For us, we have, apart the corporal punishment that we banned, we also gave an alternative tool for positive discipline in the school.
All right, what's your alternative?
Yes. So for the alternative positive discipline tools, we have 4 levels. And for us, we feel that the first level, you have to create a discipline environment. And that simply means that we expect that teachers and the learners or students themselves would come together and set out rules and expectations of students. And then what they are supposed to do. So, for example, let me give you a practical example. If we come together, students and teachers come together and decide that, well, if you litter, this is the punishment. You have to sweep the classroom for the whole day, or you have to sweep the classroom for a week. You have to sweep the classroom for a week. Then both students and teachers have come together to put this rule across. And so if you go against it, you are reminded and then the sanction.
Right.
We believe that when you come together to create that discipline environment, the students own that and they are able to abide by it. So that is the first level.
Okay.
Now we have the second level, which is the minor or first-time offense. And so here, it is non-punitive actions, and it's basically intended to remind students of the laid-down standards of behavior. So if we say don't litter, we have all agreed that we don't have to litter. If you litter, you sweep the class for the whole week, and then you do it as a first-time offender. We'll have to engage the students and remind you that we all said that if you litter, this is what is going to happen. Why did you litter? We'll have to find out, and we have to remind the students. So it's just to make this environment safe. And then the third, if consistently we have a repeated offense from this student who would keep on littering, then we have to apply, for example, if this boy or this girl loves football, that is where you can bring in isolation. You isolate the students, or you look for other way of reformative measures that the students will go through, so that if he or she likes football and you isolate him, I mean, he's going to miss the students or his colleagues or the friends playing football, and so would want to join them and would not want to do that again. And so that is the level, the third level. And then the final level, which is the chronic and dangerous and disruptive behavior, we are saying that if consistently this student keeps doing the wrong thing, then we should really go further, invite the parents. There may be an underlying condition, maybe physically, and psychologically or medically. So we need to find out. So if A, B, C, it keeps on going on and going on, you keep reminding, you keep applying the other positive sanctions, and the student keeps repeating, then we have to bring in the parents and then find out what exactly the underlying condition is that keeps making the student. So these are the four levels that I can explain that we believe that when we are able to take the students through, the focus is to reform them, not to inflict physical or mental pain on the students.
Right.
That we believe that would not help the students stay in school and then learn. So we want, they have done the wrong thing, you want to correct them, let's use the positive ways of correcting them, because at the end of the day, we want them to change. We don't want them to be in pain. We've had instances where some teachers are caning, and then a student nearly lost the eye, right? Some will also ask you to kneel. Some will even pull your ear. Some would let you, use spoons and other things. A whole sort of things in the schools. And it makes the environment a violent environment. And that is what we don't want to.
Thank you very much, Cassandra Chum Ampofo. Unfortunately, we can't go into as much as we would want to, but I believe now that you've indicated you're open, or the GS is open to having conversations about this, we'll take it from there. But there's also, I would want to come to you, Mr. Uso-Duomi. You heard all that Cassandra had to say. Is it the case that it's not working in the schools?
Yes, the whole thing is with the guidance and counseling department of the schools, and like all my other speakers have said, I think we are all in the same boat. Definitely the capacity of the guidance and counseling units of the school will have to be enhanced so they would work. Our student population of about 2002, we have the school chaplain who is doubling up the guidance and counseling coordinator. He's only a priest. I don't know how well versed he is in guidance and counseling. That's not to the little ability. But the fact still remains that we have well-trained and equipped guidance and counseling coordinators in the schools. I don't know what of other schools. It will go a long way to boost this counseling unit, and they will be able to do a wonderful job. We are in for everything that would come. We are in for it, and we are expecting that the engineers will engage us more on some of these things, so that quickly those institutions that do not have well-qualified guidance and counseling units will have them. So it will continue from there. I abhor corporal punishment myself, so I wouldn't anything to be done to them. But definitely we are Africans, and we need to do things the way we feel it is right. And I think I agree with everybody who has spoken on the panel.
Mr. Uso-Duomi, finally, I just want to ask you quickly, do you get the sense that, and Sefam alluded to that, do you get the sense that parents are dumping their children on you and avoiding disciplining them in their homes?
It could be 50-50. Sometimes when you speak to, when schools are on vacation, you ask a parent will call and ask, when will school reopen? Because the kids, and in this COVID, and the COVID-19 pandemic, and the epic COVID, we had several calls. And when the schools reopen, it says that our kids will come soon. And they are not saying these things out of the blue. They know what they undergo when their wards are in there. So some of them, yes, they train their wards so well. In my home, I'm not boasting, but when you come, all my little ones are here. They are on vacation, and yet you cannot even hear there are people inside. Yeah.
You are
so
in charge.
It's about how you bring up your work. So parents will also have to come into the fray.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Kwame Usu Edriomi, Secretary for CHAS. And we also had Cassandra Chumampofo, the PRO of the Ghana Education Service, also joining us. And then Sefam Lord Mensah, a teacher and a parent. Thank you very much, Sefam, for being part of the conversation. I'll give Peter Anti, who's with us in the studio, the final words on this before we get to go. So your concluding remarks about how we can take this forward. The GSS is open to having a dialogue on this.
All right, thank you very much. One, I think that there are two steps that we can use. One, we need to resort to an immediate measure. Immediate measure meaning that we have to employ a lot of psychologists and then guidance and counseling coordinators in our schools as early as possible to be able to implement the positive punitive measures that the GS is taking. But for me, the long-term measure is what is important to me. See, education should be deliberate. And in doing or in trying to give deliberate education, we should understand that society is changing. The socialization process has now shifted from the family to the school. So we should be able to structure our educational institutions in such a way that they are able to not only provide the needed education in terms of the cognitive development, but also they should be able to shape the total behavior of the child in terms of their affective. That is what is really lacking. And the support systems and everything that needed to be provided in the school through the curriculum should be provided. And that, if you're able to do that, we are safe. We are going to be safe in the next generation that is about to come. But if you don't do that and we focus so much about the cognitive development, we are going to have intellectuals who are able to do marvelously well, but they are morally corrupt.
All right. Thank you very much, Peter Anti. He's Executive Director of the Institute for Education Studies. And the conversation will continue, and it certainly should continue. But before we go, we actually have a statement coming from the GES. It's not related to discipline in schools.
No, it's not. Okay, so it's a press release, and it's on the Public Education and Sensitization on School Selection 2021-2022. So management of the Ghana Education Service wishes to inform the general public, particularly parents, candidates and teachers, that the sensitization and education on this year's guidelines for school selection into senior high schools will commence tomorrow, Tuesday, the 23rd of November, 2021. This exercise will take place in all the respective regional district education directorates and schools. Now, management wishes to inform all stakeholders to watch out for infographics, short videos in 9 Ghanaian languages, flyers, and the physical presence of officers in all districts, communities, and schools to embark on the sensitization drive. Management further informs stakeholders that the selection of schools is scheduled from 29th November 2021 to 14th December 2021. Parents and guardians are particularly advised to take keen interest in the selection of schools processes to ensure a smooth placement this year. Again, there will be an opportunity for candidates to text to a short code and confirm their school choices before actual placements will be done. Details of the short code will be made available in due course. And that's signed by Cassandra Chumampofo, head of the Public Relations Unit. And a very big thank you to everyone, all of our friends who joined us for this conversation. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Primetime and Goyle about what's happening in the country, the most exciting thing going on in Ghana right now. Of course, the National Science and Maths Quiz. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.